Hello, I am Seema and welcome to part 13 of the chapter Electrochemistry. In the previous part, we discussed about the problem of finding out the resistance of an ionic solution using the Wheatstone Bridge. I told you that unlike a wire that can be connected in the Wheatstone Bridge whose resistance is to be found out, we cannot use a solution because it's a liquid. So the solution for this problem was made by making a special apparatus which was known as the conductivity cell. And once the conductivity cell was found, we could use that to find out the resistance of the solution. But once the conductivity cell was created, it became important to know another quantity which was known as the cell constant. And the cell constant is represented by G star, and it is nothing but the ratio between the length and conductivity and area. And it is equal to the product of resistance and conductivity R, that is resistance, and conductivity, that is kappa. Having understood this, let us now move ahead in understanding that how do we use this in order to find out the conductivity of an ionic solution. Once we have the conductivity cell and we know how to calculate its cell constant, we now have a Wheatstone bridge and we can use this conductivity cell instead of a wire and use the Wheatstone bridge to find out the resistance of this solution. There was another problem that if you have a direct current passing through the solution, the ionic reaction that is taking place will take place completely or to a great extent, and therefore the concentration of the solution would change because the reactants and the products would convert into products, and therefore the concentration of the reactants would change. If the concentration of the reactants changes, the conductivity automatically changes. Therefore, you cannot use direct current, you need to use alternating current. So keeping these things in mind, we now create this Wheatstone bridge in which we put this unknown solution, or the solution whose resistance is unknown, in the conductivity cell, and we use it as R2. And we create this entire arrangement which is that of a Wheatstone bridge. So what does it have? It has a variable resistance which is R1. R1 and R2 are connected like this. And then these two ends are joined together. Another wire has two wires have two resistances. This is R3 resistance and R4 resistance. R3 and R4 resistances are known to us. And R1 is a resistance which is variable, which can be changed. And R2 is the resistance of a solution which we are supposed to find out, or we call it the unknown resistance. In the Wheatstone bridge, we have an oscillator. The oscillator may be just like you have a tuning fork, something like that, which is an electrical oscillator perhaps, which oscillates with alternating current, not with direct current, because this was a condition. If we use alternating current, the reaction proceeds in both directions alternatingly, therefore no chemical reaction on the whole occurs, and the resistance of that solution remains the same. So we use an oscillator which provides the oscillations as alternating current in the frequency ranges of 500 to 5000 cycles per second. Other than this, in the Wheatstone bridge, we have this detector. The detector is connected to the upper half and the lower half in such a way. Now it divides this entire apparatus like this, that R1 and R4, R3 divided by R3 upon R2. The ratio between the two resistances, sums of resistances, would be different. Now if we strike the oscillator in such a way, at such a frequency, and we adjust the adjustable resistance in such a manner that the detector, which may be headphones, does not detect any sound. It means that we adjust the resistance in such a manner that on the whole there is no electric current which passes through this, no electric current is detected in the entire Wheatstone bridge. So we say at that time the Wheatstone bridge is balanced. And the ratio of R1 into R4 upon R3 into R2 becomes equal to 0. From this equation, we can calculate the value of R2. So let me just read this now. The bridge is balanced when no current passes through the detector. So you do not detect anything in the headphone. So there is no current that is passing through the detector. At such a time, R1, R4 upon R3, R2 would be equal to 0, from which we calculate R2, and R2 is equal to R1, R4 upon R3. And what is R2? R2 is the unknown resistance. So you can calculate the unknown resistance from this. Now what is funny is that these days we have conductivity meters which can directly be dipped into a solution and they'll give you the reading of the conductivity of that particular solution, and you really don't have to carry it out on a Wheatstone Bridge and make a conductivity cell. All this is kind of old, yet we study it because we must know the basics of what exactly is it. So we do have conductivity meters available these days, but this is just a little, information that has been put in to tell you that what you studied was kind of futile, yet necessary. It's funny, but such information, it is important to know that such meters are available if you're practically doing it for some industrial reason, let us say. Now, once the cell constant, that is, the cell constant is G star, and which is equal to the ratio of length upon area, which is equal to the product of resistance and conductance. Once the cell constant is known to us and the unknown resistance is known to us, now we can calculate the conductivity of the ionic solution. How? Because cell constant is equal to the product of the resistance and conductivity. So conductivity would be equal to G star upon R. So we use that formula and we will find out, once we know the cell constant and the resistance, it is possible to find out the value of kappa, that is the conductance of the solution. So once the cell constant and the resistance of the solution is determined, conductivity can be given by kappa is equal to G star upon R. But now there's a practical problem with kappa. You would expect the cell constant for a cell to be, of course it is a constant. But when you put different solutions in that particular cell, let us say we have the same solvent, but we are using different solutes. The nature of the solute, how big the ions are, what is the charge on the ion, how easily can it move through, can those particles or those ions move through the solvent molecules. All this causes a difference in the conductivity with every different solute that you use, every different ionic compound that you dissolve. Besides, if you take the same ionic compound and you change its concentration, that will also affect the conductivity of the solution. Therefore, when we talk of conductivity just vaguely, we are not being very precise, because we must take into consideration the number of moles, the strength of the solution. Because if there are too many ions present in the solution, when the ion is trying to carry electric current, the ion moves and it is affected by the presence of other ions. If the other ions have the same charge, they are going to repel it. If the other ions have opposite charge, they are going to attract it. Whatever be the reason, those excess ions around it are going to create a hindrance in the movement, and therefore the conductivity would be affected. So it makes more sense to talk of a new term which is known as molar conductivity. Molar conductivity is represented by the sign lambda m. You have studied lambda when you studied the wavelength, when we were studying electromagnetic radiations. Wavelength of light was shown by lambda, and lambda there, that was represented by this letter, the Greek letter lambda. But the Greek letter lambda, this is also a Greek letter, the inverted V, this is also lambda, but this is the capital letter and this is the small letter. So please do not confuse, since Greek is not our language, please do not confuse between the two. Both of them are called lambda. So, oops, something fell. Okay, so this is lambda. And lambda m, m stands for molarity because it's the molar conductivity. So molar conductivity is represented by lambda m. So what is molar conductivity? We talk of this general conductivity which we were not satisfied with. We wanted something else, a little more detail to it, which would specify what is the concentration. So taking the concentration into consideration when we are representing the molar conductivity, what we do, we take the conductivity divided by the concentration. So that would give you the molar conductivity. So the greater the concentration, lesser will be the molar conductivity. You can understand from this. As I explained, even physically I explained, if there are too many ions present, the movement of the ions would be difficult and therefore the conductivity would go down. They are kind of inversely proportional. So molar conductivity is equal to the conductivity divided by the concentration. Now we know that the unit for conductivity is Siemens per meter. If the unit for conductivity is Siemens per meter, how do we usually measure the molar concentration? We usually measure molar concentration in terms of molarity or molality, normality, but usually, most often we use molarity. And molarity means moles per liter. And we have used in the numerator, we are using the unit for kappa, we are using is Siemens per meter. So either we change the meter also to decimeter, because what is a liter? A liter is decimeter cube. So either we change that to decimeter, or we change the decimeter cube, that is a liter, to meter cube. It would make more sense, since we are talking of conductivity. We would not like to have the units in terms of liters, that is for molarity. But since the main quantity that we are focusing on is the molar conductivity, we would like the units to be related to that. So if you have Siemens per meter, the concentration should also be in moles per meter cube and not in moles per liter. But practically, we calculate the values in terms of molarity, that is moles per liter. So mathematically, we will convert that in order to get the correct units. How do we do that? If you take conductivity to be, that is kappa, to be in Siemens per meter, then what would be the units for the molar conductivity? Siemens per meter divided by the concentration is in moles per meter cube. So when you solve this, it will be Siemens and meter minus 3, meter minus 1. This meter minus 3 will go up as meter square. Minus 1 and minus 1 would get cancelled, so you'll get meter square and mole inverse. So the unit would be Siemens meter square per mole. Right? So when we take kappa in Siemens per meter, the value of lambda m should be Siemens meter square per mole. But what is the adjustment that you're going to do in the calculation? Because molarity, as we have it, its value is going to be in moles per liter. So how would you modify the calculations? So kappa would be in Siemens per meter and molarity is in moles per liter or moles per decimeter cube. A liter is a decimeter cube. And you know that 1 meter is 10 to the power minus 1 decimeter. 10 to the power 10 decimeters. 10 decimeters make 1 meter. Let me put it this way. 10 decimeters make 1 meter. Therefore, in order to convert it into meter cube, you will multiply a meter cube and decimeter cube. You will multiply by 10 into 10 into 10 would be 1000. So you will multiply this value by 10 into 10 into 10, that is 1000 liters per meter cube. So when you need the value of lambda m in Siemens meter square per mole, the formula you use would be kappa in Siemens per meter, molarity in moles per liter, into 1000 liter per meter cube in the denominator. But if you had the units of kappa in Siemens per centimeter, which is also very commonly done, then the value of lambda m would be, if you had Siemens per centimeter cube, you will require the molarity, which is in moles per decimeter cube. Now 10 centimeters make 1 decimeter, right? So you, in order to convert that, you will now have to divide the molarity by 1000. So when you have to divide the molarity by 1000, you will get lambda m is Siemens centimeter square mole inverse would be equal to kappa in Siemens per centimeter upon molarity in moles per liter or moles per decimeter cube, and multiply this to convert the liter to centimeter cube. You will divide this value by 1000. So into 1000 centimeter cube per liter. Now in order to find out a unit factor when you want to change the units of lambda m from Siemens per meter square to per mole, Siemens meter square per mole or Siemens centimeter square per mole. When you want to interchange the two, you need a unit factor for your dimensional analysis. So the relationship between the two, what would it be? 1 Siemens meter square per mole is equal to 10 to the power 4 Siemens centimeter square per mole. You can use this as the unit factor, whichever you want to use in the denominator. Use that and cancel out and get the units that you want. If you do not understand what I'm telling you, I would suggest that you go back to the class 11 videos that I made and check the video I did on dimensional analysis. The other relationship that could be is that 1 Siemens centimeter square per mole is equal to 10 to the power minus 4 Siemens meter square per mole. They both mean the same. It is the same. When you actually calculate them, you will always get the same answer. It is just two ways of representing the same thing. So this is the relationship between the values of lambda m in centimeter when you're calculating in terms of centimeters or meters. So with that, I will finish this topic right now. And in the next video, I'll solve a couple of numerical problems based on this, and then we'll move ahead with our chapter. So if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. I really appreciate and I love getting the likes, and recommend it to your friends. I need your help to spread word about my channel. Not many children know that I am doing these lessons for them. So please let your friends know, and please keep returning to me for more videos in chemistry. Thank you for watching, and bye-bye for now.